Am I coming through? Is my mic coming through? Yeah, it is. Fuck. Guess I could grab some references while I'm waiting on some critique. Looking for like Vietnam era just pouches, just a fuckload of pouches. Because this is, well, you can't really see it. This is the armor plate. So this is the pouches. There was, oh man, oh yeah, that's gonna take forever to go back to. But there is, not armor per se, but there is a undersuit right here, which would, I mean, you don't really want to put armor here because it'll prevent movement, flexibility, all that. Putting the pouches here, they could be Kevlar lined so they'll protect you from low caliber rounds. But also, just you got to make some concessions with sci-fi armor or any armor where you don't want to have too much on. Like this, you could totally just put more armor on the arms, but then that would create an issue where we can't move your joints. So this setup, like the one that I have on this soldier over here, since these are quite large soldiers, they these are just shoulder plates. Their arms are down here, but they've got plenty of movement here on their shoulders, on their what is that, elbows. They've got good movement on their elbows. They got decent movement on their wrists. They're not able to flex up this way very much, but from what I've seen, not a lot of people do that unless they're climbing over something. And I would imagine, I feel like with how strong these soldiers are, they would just move their gauntlet out of the way if they needed to like push themselves off of something or they needed to move their wrist in that direction. So then they've got good movement here. Uh, yeah, you can kneel with this. You can stretch your leg out. This part does kind of like cut into here. On here, you can see, since we have the figure, the under figure, which I didn't do for this one, but this one's got an under figure. You can see that this plate completely misses all of this. They can basically do squats with these armor plates. And I don't know what that is. I think it's power. Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't worked everything out. I don't know where the batteries in this would be. I know the batteries for the helmet are separate, so they're probably stored like in there because they've got a combat camera, radio telecommunications, and then these soldiers don't actually have a HUD overlay. All of their HUD elements come from their wrist, so they would say lift their wrist up and it would hologram like a view of the battlefield, or say it would show them, it'll hologram out a map and it'll show them like where they are, where their team is, buildings around them, buildings that have been cleared, hostile enemies if you have a UAV, or aerial surveillance, or IFF scanners. I think the legs are like a good idea. Mainly, the legs have a lot of flexibility, but legs don't bend this way, so you don't need a lot of flexibility that way. You just need a lot behind, and I think this armor provides that. Not to mention, the feet have plenty of room to bend, like up there, down here. They have plenty of room to twist. And it's not like full armor on the foot, so it's not restricting movement that much. It's actually very loose, like no armor on the foot, because most of this is boot material. they've got steel toes, but most of this is just boot material. This is flexible, probably Kevlar fabric just because it's military. So with this, I imitated it, even though they've got different feet because this is a Lytharian, so they've got way different feet and just pretty different physiologically because they're a different race. But they've still got some of the hallmarks, and since they came up on the same planet that the Bosch did, they have some of the same elements. So you can see that they have the same. This is Bosch military armor, but mercenaries, Lytharian mercenaries, use sort of the same gear. You can see the same design elements, and yeah, I did just sort of copy the or trace my old art onto this, but I did have to change it in some places, mainly sorry, mainly because they've got different, it's just a little different because it's refitted and modified. So it doesn't have a screen because their helmets actually have a heads-up display, everything contained in there, rather than this open design that the Bosch use. They have lots of pouches on the chest rig due to just longer engagements. Lytharians are a very militaristic race. They like to do long military engagements, long firefights, anything that keeps them in battle and they're able to just kill more people or just do a good job at what they're trying to do. So I did skimp out on the hands. I need to redo those. The legs are good. I feel like these the knee guards are a little weird looking. I feel like I could change the shape and make them look better. But they do kind of fit the overall very circular feel to the armor. Because, like, shoulder pads, very curved, helmet, very curved. Even though it's pretty rectangular, it's still very curved. The armor, curved, it kind of follows the body line of the muscles, because these are very strong races. So they've got, it follows the curvature of the musculature of them. And it kind of needs to do that, because if all your soldiers are roided out, you kind of have to remake your armor to fit those guys. Like, have you ever seen a roided out Marine and his plate carrier barely fits him? You don't really want that situation when you're getting shot at a lot. Especially with the issue of sci-fi armor that some people bring up. I think it's a cliche, maybe, but that in the future we'll wear full suits of armor. Well, I would explain it in the way of, in a military engagement that takes place on a planet, and the entire planet is the military engagement, it's probably going to be, it's most likely going to be pretty hard to disengage from the conflict and pull back. So you want plenty of armor to protect you from stray rounds, intentional fire, suppressing fire, anything that would be coming your way. You don't want to get hit because medical services might not even be there. There might not be any medics near you. And even if you have a medic, if you get hurt in the wrong place, it could be hours before you're able to get airlifted or taken to medical triage, something like that. So it's a high mortality rate in the field simply due to the distances between things. And because it's a galaxy, it's hard to get treaties or agreements with each other to agree not to shoot down medical craft or to agree not to shoot medics. Not to mention, you're going to have soldiers that just don't obey those orders. In the terms of the Bosch, the military faction that they are fighting, they really don't like. So even if it would, it's a belief difference as well as a how would I say that? They're not fighting each other for, say, land or for alliances or any of that. The fight started because the aggressors, the council in this situation, the aggressors attacked the Bosch first, so they are now attacking the council. So it's going to be very hard to convince either side that they should stand down when there's a medical craft. Especially this far into a war, it's going to be like, well, they've shot down our medical craft, why shouldn't we shoot theirs down? Even if we have this treaty, I'm sure they're still shooting ours down. Just a plethora of, like, excuses and things like that that are going to make it really hard to come to agreements like that. And so you kind of have to make your armor to withstand long tours in hostile areas, whether that be behind enemy lines or simpler things of just maintaining security over a colony. In that situation, it would be easier to get to a backline and get supplies, but it's not going to just be instant. Not to mention, sorry, not to mention, in a situation where you have hostile control over a colony, where the inhabitants of the colony are not aligned with your motives, or they are claiming to be an independent colony and they don't want you overseeing them, it could get very rowdy very fast. So if a riot breaks out, you can't just be like, oh, well, I've got to go and get riot gear on, because it could happen very quickly, especially with if the colony had time to be independent before your occupying military was there. It could turn very violent very quickly because they have the arms to not necessarily repel a I guess you would call it a martial overseeing of the colony. Basically repel a military, what would you call that? Military inhabitant? A military occupation. They might have the means to, while not repel it fully, do a lot of damage to where the military either becomes very hesitant to, say, go outside or enforce certain laws in the area. They could become hesitant to, like the Russians in Afghanistan, they became hesitant to leave their bases. So they would move in armored convoys. If they saw anything that resembled a threat, they would stop, call artillery on it. They would keep moving, call artillery on it. They would just destroy the area because they were so scared of the insurrectionists, or the, I believe it was the Taliban at that time. I'm not familiar. It might have been Al Qaeda. But they were so scared of the local forces that they just couldn't do it. And I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I believe that's what caused them to pull out of Afghanistan, is their inability to secure the area. So in an occupation, there's multiple situations where you would need a set of armor, especially if the whole set is as durable as, say, AR-500 steel. I believe that's what it's called. Most plate carriers are made of it. Steel. Yes, AR 500 steel. Ballistic rating. Hold on. Okay, that was the mailman. AR 500 steel, I believe, is level 3 plates. Or it is just a. I'm not fully familiar with how the level of plates work. I would imagine it may be AR 500 steel, but at different thicknesses, it becomes different levels. If that's the case, that's the case. I'm not familiar with it. But if each part of the armor is able to at least withstand a reasonable hit from hostile fire, then it would stand to reason that you would have full suits. Now, I do understand the idea of, say, like stormtroopers. They've got full suits of armor and it does nothing. It doesn't. It doesn't help them at all. They take one shot and they die. Well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. But if you have a full suit of armor in, say, like a sci-fi setting, and the suit of armor actually works, like you can take a couple shots, whether you can take the concussive and physical hit of the shot, a different story, but you survived. It may hurt, you may be bruised, you may have broken a bone, but you're not dead, and you're not bleeding out right now. So it makes sense, to me at least, that you would wear all of that, especially a race like Lytharians that are very strong. I think they can hold enough armor for it to actually be worth it. With humans, we have a limit to how much we can carry, and that includes our gun, our kit, which I wouldn't even say kit in regards to, say, the armor itself. But if you include our weaponry, our kits, rucksacks, ammo, all of that, it's going to start weighing us down pretty fast. Humans are not very populous in, or populated. In mine, it's maybe 5% human, which is mostly due to the war that happened. There's not a lot of humans left because they didn't. Earth is not in this galaxy. They came from a different galaxy on colony ships, and then a war happened, and so there's not a lot of them left. The ones that are left, very feared, but most of them that came here were Martians from the Sol system, but they were Martians, and some of the Martian modifications to their military was genetic augmentation, so their soldiers could carry a lot more. Humans generally have lighter armors, either that or they have exoskeleton driven armors where will it will lift everything on them so it doesn't feel like they're lifting a lot. The only issue with exoskeletons, obviously, upkeep. Upkeep is a big issue because you need to upkeep the joints, you need to upkeep the motors, everything like that. I don't necessarily know exactly how they would work, but the most popular in my setting would be unpowered exosuits that essentially they're less of an exosuit that is, or an exoskeleton that is driven by electricity, but it mostly stands to spread the overall weight amongst the body so that instead of like wearing your back out or making like it's really heavy, hard to handle, it spreads it out on key areas of the body to make it feel like less or to make it easier to march with or just withstand. That's the most common because it's the least expensive. Mercenaries like to use them. It's very widespread there. Militaries, well, there's not really a lot of human militaries, but there are elven militaries. They use them. Uh, but it's a system. Exoskeletons, odd. Uh, Powered exoskeletons are even better. You can equip a machine gunner with a powered exoskeleton, and they'll have plenty of strength to carry all the ammo they need, replacement barrels. It's just a good idea. But aside from that, having full sets of armor, while it's not doable by every race, it's doable by most. Even it's doable by most for some different reasons. Like these two races, Lytharians and Bosch, they have very strong musculatures. So because of their planet and the harsh environments that they grew up on, and also the culture on their planet, they are very strong. They evolved to be very strong due to the gravity on their planet and also the wildlife on their planet and the situation that they need to survive in there. But also because after evolving that way, their culture kept a big emphasis on being strong. That was probably because the planet that they originated on had a god on it who really emphasized being strong and being able to protect yourself, protect the people of your clan or your village, and what became just protect the people of your race or the Bosch Empire, anything like that. And now strength to them, after all these decades of cultural evolution, since their like feudal age, now their belief for strength is just that it shows one, you are a representative for your race at all times, which, whether that's true or not, can be left up for debate, but you they believe you are, so if you're going to be representing your race, you might as well represent your race as well as possible. So, when doing so, they prefer to be strong. Not to mention, strength shows a certain amount of respect for yourself. That makes I think that makes sense. I think that's an easier concept to grasp. But it's also just Bosch frown on weakness unless it's, say, unwilling weakness or earned weakness. Say, those two things are pretty easy to explain. Unwilling weakness is like a child. A child didn't choose to be weak; they're just weak. Uh, Other races, they're not weak because they chose to. Even if another race, say Growl Elf, are real like they're a bodybuilder, they're probably not as strong as a Bosch because Bosch are just naturally stronger. So they don't frown on them because they don't shame them because oh man, you're not very strong, you're really weak. It's more of you're weak because you're another race, so there's not much you can do. If you're doing as much as you can, then that's respectable. But earned weakness is like old people. If you're old in the Bosch, it means usually, obviously, there's a lot of situations, but usually it means one of two things. Either one, you did not participate very heavily in military service, or if you did, you were not a frontliner. So there's that. Or two, if you were a frontliner and you participated heavily in military service, you're a very skilled individual, a person who can hold their own, and decided that instead of retiring, say, Blaze of Glory style, which most Bosch commanders do when they're about to retire or they get too old to fight, if they have no family that they want to look after, or they're the last of their generation, like in their family, they're the last grandparent or something, they will usually be equipped with a death switch, which is a gauntlet that goes onto the left or right arm, right there. It'll lock on, and when the commander goes down in combat, it will detonate a small nuclear explosion when they go down, if they're not near allies. This causes a situation where am I rambling? It's whatever. But this usually causes a situation with reputation where if the enemy or pirates, anybody that the Bosch have been fighting for a long time, sees a commander who is well decorated move into the battlefield on their own, it may not change the front lines in any way, but it to the soldiers it will. It's a little bit of fear because if it's somebody who's going to just run up on the battlefield, die, and then detonate a nuclear device, I wouldn't want to be on the battlefield either. What was I talking about? What did I start with? I know the full armor thing is what I was talking about mostly. How did I get on the strength thing? Oh well. But yeah, I still have no idea how to do these uh, pouches. I don't know how people whew, people draw so well with fabrics. I am not very good at doing that. I also just generally wonder if I can delete all of that. Yeah, I can. I want to see that those are the pouches that I originally had. I thought that was going to be enough, but I don't think it looks like enough pouches. I would rather like a big sort of chest, what is that, chest rig that has lots of pouches and stuff. I think that would look good if I could figure out how to do that. There's an artist on Twitter that I follow, uh, Goliath or Goliath. I don't think it's pronounced any different, but he draws lots of military things, and his pouches are very minimalistic. And I don't. I have an issue where doing minimalistic drawings, I have a very hard time doing those because I get fixated on the part that I'm looking at, and so I want to add more detail, more detail. Yeah, I'm looking at. Well, that's a good image. Yeah, looking at his bags, they're not super undetailed, but it's not like, I don't know, they don't look bad, and they don't have a lot of lines detailing a lot of stuff. It's a lot of suggesting, like, making your brain fill in the blanks, sort of. So I am going to try just. Can I just put that there? There. I want it to be a pretty chunky piece of gear. I think that looks good. What if I got rid of the skeletal? Uh, oh, that's way too big. Oh, whoops. Mm, that's too small. What about doubling it? Or a little over double. So these are the straps. Let me just redo that really quick. These are the straps. This is the pouch, or the chest rig. Can I find a good picture? There. Let me. PNG. Save. Yeah. Okay, back out. All right, Alright, I think that'll be it for this video. I know a lot of the stuff on my channel is very varied, but it's not like anybody's watching it. I do a lot of stuff in my day-to-day, mainly because I don't have a job right now, and I'm in the situation of just making sure I don't spend money, so I am just kind of riding the waves until I move. So, but if any of this takes off, thanks, I guess.